A blonde woman sits on the bed, shyly addressing the man lying next to her. Her confidence grows as she and another woman tell him to drop the act. He finds himself in a pleasant dream, being tended to by two alluring women. The man blushes intensely, completely lost in the fantasy of their attention. The dream feels incredibly real as a hand caresses his cheek, making him question reality. His eyes snap open, a bead of sweat forming as the sensation feels too vivid. The fantasy shatters as a monstrous tongue licks his face, replacing pleasure with confusion. His eye widens in sheer terror as he realizes the beautiful dream was just a facade. The horrifying truth is revealed. Two demonic wolves with glowing red eyes are looming over him. One of the massive beasts lunges forward, its jaws open as he recoils in absolute fear. Pinned to the ground, he glares with fierce defiance, refusing to be prey. With a burst of adrenaline, he lands a solid blow, sending the beast reeling. This survivor, Chu Guang, scrambles to his feet and makes a desperate run for it. He sprints across the barren wasteland, his simple scavenging trip having gone horribly wrong. Gasping for air, the grueling chase has clearly taken a toll on his stamina. He finally outpaces the creature, realizing it was thankfully not as strong as it looked. Stopping to catch his breath, he looks at his weary reflection, confirming he's finally alone. He now faces the daunting silhouette of a monster-infested post-apocalyptic city as night falls. Deciding safety is more important than food, he runs toward the ruins to find shelter. His destination is revealed, an abandoned hospital, the unassuming entrance to his hidden base. He arrives at a massive, glowing door, revealing the entrance to shelter number 404. Though the entrance looks rough, he knows this place is a hidden treasure trove. Inside, a sprawling high-tech facility reveals the true nature of his sanctuary. A cute, bunny-eared robot assistant named Little Seven zips over to greet its master. He calmly addresses his robotic assistants, who seem a bit too eager for his return. As the administrator of this shelter, he walks towards his command center, his personal fortress. Finally safe, he takes a moment to refuel with the limited supplies he has left. But his role as administrator comes with a unique set of responsibilities he must now attend to. With a determined gaze, he prepares to tackle the crucial task at hand. His grand plan is revealed, to summon players from Earth and use them to reclaim this desolate world. With a wicked grin, he launches his master plan, the Wasteland Online project. His bait is a simple question, promising a game indistinguishable from reality. On Earth, his alias Light drops the announcement in a chat group, only to be met with mockery. A skeptical young man in his dorm dismisses the claim, certain such tech would be for military use. He types out his cynical response, joining the others in shutting down the absurd idea. But his smug expression freezes as a new message from Light appears on screen. A simple invitation is posted, along with a link to the supposed game's website. Back in the wastelands, Chu Guang patiently watches the results from his command center. He confirms the link is live, inviting anyone brave enough to take the plunge. His fabricated game advertisement, featuring fierce wasteland warriors, successfully lures in its first few applicants. With a smug grin, Chu Guang confirms he has enough applicants to complete his first mission. A system notification confirms his success, granting him a new vest and reward points after 5 long months. The story flashes back to 5 months ago, revealing his life back on Earth. Before the apocalypse, he was just a sharp-dressed, ordinary sales executive. To celebrate closing a major deal, he decided to unwind at a bustling club. But his celebration was cut short by a sudden, intense tightness in his chest. A piercing sound filled his ears as his consciousness began to fade away. He awakens abruptly, disoriented and clutching his head in agony. His eyes snap open, trying to make sense of his new, harsh surroundings. He stares in shock at a ruined, post-apocalyptic world, realizing his old life is gone forever. He initially believed it was an elaborate prank, desperately running to escape the supposed movie set. But the sheer vastness of the wasteland exhausted him, crushing his hopes of a quick escape. As he stumbled through a puddle, a far more terrifying realization began to dawn on him. His own reflection revealed the shocking truth. He was trapped in a completely different body. The same agonizing, piercing sound that preceded his collapse on Earth filled his head once more. Suddenly, a holographic system panel materialized before his eyes, defying all logic. The system officially welcomed him to Wasteland Online, assigning him the role of Scavenger Chu Guang. His first instinct was to call for help, but he quickly realized he had lost everything, even his phone. After wandering aimlessly for a day, the gnawing pain of hunger became his most immediate problem. Accepting his grim new reality, he headed into the desolate city, his survival now depending on finding food. He stumbles upon a makeshift survivor camp, a glimmer of hope in the desolate city. Peeking through the fence, his primary goal is to find food among the other downtrodden survivors. He resolves to enter the settlement, hoping to gather crucial information about this strange new world. His plan is cut short when a weapon is suddenly pressed against his head, a voice demanding his origin. He's stunned to find he can perfectly understand the foreign language, a strange side effect of his transmigration. Held at gunpoint by a grizzled survivor named Old Walter, he realizes he can also speak this new tongue fluently. He attempts a friendly, disarming smile, trying to explain he's just a harmless traveler. Before he can finish, a flash of light signals a swift attack from another survivor. The attack wasn't for him, it was for the monstrous creature that had been silently stalking him from behind. Old Walter gruffly lectures him, pointing out the folly of exploring the dangerous wasteland without proper gear. Old Walter warns him that the unprepared quickly become monster chow out in the wastes. Guang nervously accepts the harsh lesson, grateful for the grizzled survivor's advice. He recalls how he spent the next 5 months in that settlement, learning the brutal rules of this new world. He discovered this parallel world civilization was annihilated by a great war over 200 years ago. Now the land is plagued not only by horrifying mutated beasts, but also by ruthless human marauders who prey on the weak. After 5 long months, he finally has a grasp on this grim reality, though the weight of it is clear. Yet, a strange mystery pulls him back to where he first appeared, a place that triggers a piercing sound in his head. He journeys alone through the sprawling, skeletal remains of the once great city. His investigation leads him to the foot of a derelict building, an abandoned nursing home. The piercing sound intensifies, confirming he's finally found its source. He peers into the building's ruins, drawn towards a mysterious blue glow. Venturing deeper, he discovers a vast, hidden space beneath the nursing home. He freezes in his tracks, a sudden realization dawning on his face. Before him stands a massive, futuristic door, the source of the relentless signal. The intricate glowing lock seems to hum with an ancient, powerful energy. The signal pulses directly into his mind, giving him a single clear instruction. He reaches out and places his hand on the panel, shocked as it accepts his print. With a blinding flash of light, the colossal vault door begins to slide open. A high-tech bunker is revealed, and he stands ready to uncover its secrets. As the door opens, a menacing shadow with glowing eyes looms over him, sparking immediate regret. But the terrifying silhouette was just a trick of the light, revealing a tiny, bunny-eared robot hopping towards him. The cheerful robot, serial number 777, excitedly congratulates him on becoming the administrator of shelter number 404. He's stunned by this revelation, realizing he's just been promoted from a simple scavenger to the shelter's administrator. His new title is officially confirmed, Administrator GM, though he's starting at a humble level 0. His robotic helper explains it will assist him with his new tasks, a term that leaves him completely baffled. The robot reveals his grand mission, to summon players from Earth's internet to help him conquer the wasteland. The gears in his head start turning as he realizes this high-tech shelter is his ticket back to contacting Earth. The robot explains the shelter not only connects to Earth, but even has its own official website for recruitment. Every player who registers through the site will be assigned a number and recorded on the official shelter resident list, which he now manages. As the administrator, he holds the power to select which applicants from Earth get to join the game. The system then magically delivers a high-tech gaming headset directly to the chosen players. Once they put it on, their consciousness is pulled through a digital vortex into the wasteland world. The players awaken, completely bewildered by the hyper-realistic sensations of their new environment. Their minds are connected to one of the many clones stored in stasis pods within the shelter. A wicked grin spreads across his face as the full game-changing potential of this system dawns on him. He realizes this isn't just a shelter, it's his ultimate cheat code for surviving and thriving in this world. Feeling a sense of command, he decides to give his robotic assistant a more personal name, Little Seven. The robot is overcome with joy, celebrating the fact that it finally has a proper name. It then glitches, creating a duplicate of itself before formally pledging its undying loyalty to its new master. He lets out a sigh, finding his new robotic assistant to be surprisingly childish. A sly grin forms as he realizes this system is his key to power and a potential ticket home. The system immediately issues his first task: recruit 4 players to earn a bulletproof vest and points. The scene shifts across dimensions, landing in a university dorm room back on Earth. A gamer named Xiaoyu, sporting a very confident username, scoffs at rumors of a new game. Meanwhile, an online forum buzzes with talk about Wasteland Online and its unbelievable features. Xiaoyu remains deeply skeptical, convinced the game's claims of hyper-realism are a cheap marketing ploy. At that very moment, Guang is furiously typing away at his command center in Shelter 404. He navigates the online forums with practiced ease, ready to bait his first hook. Posing as a regular user, he drops the official website link into the chat, setting his trap. A single bead of sweat rolls down his face as a sliver of doubt creeps into his mind. He ponders the possibility of his heavily modded game, with its hundreds of custom companions, becoming real. His imagination runs wild with visions of his fantasy characters attending to his every need. With a manic grin, he justifies his curiosity as a noble quest for scientific discovery. He clicks the register button, ready to expose Wasteland Online for the scam he believes it is. Later that day, he walks through the university canteen, the game momentarily forgotten. He devours his meal with incredible enthusiasm, completely absorbed in the moment. Full and content, he strolls back towards his dorm, humming a cheerful tune. He opens his door only to be shocked by a mysterious large package waiting for him. Confused, he tells his roommate he never ordered anything, wondering who could have sent the box. His roommates deny any knowledge of the package, leaving him to stew in his own suspicion. He cautiously opens the box, and a sleek, high-tech helmet stares back at him. His shock turns to disbelief as he identifies the object as a cutting-edge gaming headset. Throwing caution to the wind, he puts on the helmet, eager to see if it actually works. The helmet immediately activates, flooding his vision with an overwhelmingly brilliant light. His senses are overwhelmed by a swirling digital vortex, signaling the game's imminent start. He grins triumphantly, ready to meet the cast of custom characters he'd always dreamed of. He fully embraces the fantasy, convinced his dream of a legion of loyal companions is about to come true. His blissful fantasy is shattered in an instant as reality sets in with a jolt. Instead of a game, he's met with a shocking system message, a 72-hour countdown until launch. He lets out a scream of pure agony, utterly devastated by the 3-day waiting period. His anguished cry echoes through the night, infuriating everyone else in the dorm. His roommates barge in, demanding to know what the commotion is about, and trying to inspect the device. Meanwhile, back in the shelter, Guang monitors his newly recruited players from his command center. The online forum erupts with activity as other players confirm they've also received mysterious headsets. Unease spreads as they realize the company knows their addresses and delivered the headsets with impossible speed. The players debate their next move, noting that the strange countdown screen is impossible to photograph. Sensing their hesitation, Guang sends a message, posing as an insider who secured them exclusive beta test slots. He explains the headset initiates a binding process, permanently linking each player to their unique account. His explanation works perfectly, and the group eagerly agrees to play, hyped for the game's promised hyperrealism. He smirks, confident that recruiting his old gaming buddies was the right call. Lying back, he somberly considers that after 5 months, everyone on Earth must assume he's dead. Shaking off his melancholy, he resolves to rely on his own strength and get to work. He instructs Little Seven to upgrade the game's bare-bones website with a forum, wiki, and media gallery. His marketing strategy is simple. Since the early game is a grind, he'll use alluring female characters to attract male players. To boost engagement, he plans to use AI chatbots disguised as friendly female players to interact with the community. Back on Earth, Xiaoyu falls for the bait, eagerly promising to help a bot he believes is a real girl. With the launch looming, Guang gives Little Seven just 3 days to implement all the website upgrades. Little Seven questions its master's logic, wondering why he only sent 4 headsets when 11 people registered. The robot reveals the shelter has plenty of spare clones, making his decision to limit players seem even more strange. Guang explains that with limited supplies, fewer players are easier to manage, and he can't force anyone to play. He decides to focus on nurturing his 4 chosen players, believing quality is better than quantity. Little Seven confirms his task is complete and presents him with his well-earned reward. A system notification confirms he's received a nanocarbon bulletproof vest and 5 reward points. Intrigued by the high-tech name, he immediately claims the bulletproof vest from the system menu. The vest instantly materializes and equips itself to his body, glowing with a futuristic hexagonal pattern. He reads the item description, realizing the vest will provide him with crucial protection in the wasteland. Little Seven introduces a new feature, a blind box system that can be purchased with his reward points. The robot details the potential rewards, explaining that different tiers of boxes yield food, medicine, or even weapons. He faces a tough choice: spend his points now for basic supplies or save up for a powerful weapon. Little Seven alerts him that a new task has just been updated in his administrator's log. He checks the log, seeing a main quest to get players online and a side quest offering a massive 100 reward points. Stunned by the huge reward, he learns that the main quest's active matter is essentially a revival token for players. With a confident smirk, he decides to spend his current points on basic blind boxes, saving the future reward for a weapon. A hatch on the floor hisses open, revealing a glowing compartment ready to dispense his rewards. He watches as a large futuristic machine emerges from the floor, shrouded in a cloud of cold mist. The machine activates a conveyor belt, and he silently waits for his blind box prizes to appear. His grand prize turns out to be 3 lollipops and a single pack of compressed biscuits, leaving him utterly unimpressed. He expresses his disappointment with the stingy rewards, complaining that it's not even a full set. However, nestled among the snacks is a small folded piece of paper, hinting at a hidden prize. His eyes widen in surprise as he examines the mysterious paper. He carefully unfolds the note, wondering if this is the true 5th prize from his blind box. He realizes the note is from the shelter's previous administrator, written in the language of this new world. The message reveals a cynical but brilliant strategy, using players as an endlessly resilient and exploitable workforce. His admiration turns to fury as he realizes this Easter egg replaced a tangible reward. Despite his anger, he has to admit the previous administrator's plan to frame everything as a game was truly genius. He questions Little Seven about the first administrator, but the robot has no memory of its creator. Undeterred, he orders Little Seven to scour the shelter's database for any information on his predecessor. The robot projects a data log, revealing the previous administrator left over a century ago, in the year 2157. The log details a devastating war that ended in mutual destruction, plunging civilization into the wasteland era. He learns that a nuclear winter nearly destroyed humanity, and all records of his predecessor have been erased. Deciding to shelve the mystery, he shifts his focus to preparing for the player's arrival. He stores the previous administrator's note, acknowledging the shelter's critical lack of food and water. Promising to return within 3 days, he prepares to leave Little Seven behind in the shelter. His mission is clear: venture back to the survivor camp and secure provisions for his new recruits. The journey through the desolate city is fraught with danger, as mutated hyenas patrol the streets. These grotesque, 2-headed creatures are a horrifying product of the wasteland's radiation. His stealth fails as the beasts spot him, and a flash of panic crosses his face. He quickly composes himself, recalling a previous encounter with these gamma-ray mutants. Despite their terrifying appearance, he knows their mutation has actually made them weaker in combat. He knows that with a weapon in hand, taking on 2 of these creatures is no problem. He grips his makeshift weapon, confident in his ability to defeat them in a fight. However, he opts for stealth, seeing no reason to engage if he can avoid detection. He recalls that the wasteland holds far more terrifying threats than these hyenas, like monstrous creepers. These hyenas are cunning scouts, and seeing one means a whole pack is lurking nearby. He compares them to another common wasteland horror, the giant mutant cockroach. A terrifying image of a woman being swarmed by the insects flashes through his mind. He knows that in this world, a single misstep against such swarms is a death sentence. Having successfully navigated the dangers, he finally arrives at the Bet Street Survivor Camp. His first stop is the recycling center, where he plans to get chips to buy supplies for the new players. He places his scavenged goods on a notoriously rigged scale, hoping for a decent trade. The recycling center owner, Old Charlie, hands him a paltry 3 chips for his efforts. After hearing the excuse for the low payout, Chu Guang cuts to the chase and asks about acquiring a weapon. Old Charlie scoffs at the request, advising him to stock up on food and fuel before winter hits. The mention of winter catches Chu Guang off guard, as he's never experienced one in the wasteland. The old man thoughtfully predicts an early and brutal start to the cold season this year. He warns that as winter approaches, ravenous mutants become hyperactive, preparing for the long freeze. Chu Guang recalls the perils of winter, where a simple misstep in the snow can lead to a nasty surprise. Even the most hardened merchants dread the season, halting all trade routes until spring returns. Charlie points out the only alternative is a treacherous 10-kilometer trek to Boulder City, a journey Chu Guang isn't ready for. He remembers old Charlie's tragic past, a former shelter resident captured and sold into servitude. Put up for auction, he was eventually purchased by the mayor of Bet Street. This led to his current position, managing the recycling center and dealing with scavengers. Chu Guang muses that in a different life, the old man's intellect could have made him a brilliant engineer or scholar. Thanking the old man for his advice, Chu Guang waves goodbye and heads out. He speculates that Charlie's kindness stems from a shared background as shelter survivors. Back at his own humble dwelling, he knows 3 chips are nearly worthless and decides to check his stash. Settling down in his Spartan room, he opens a small metal box containing his life savings. Adding the new chips to his collection, his entire fortune now totals a modest 50 chips. He immediately starts planning, deciding his first priority is buying tools to repair the shelter's dilapidated walls. He decides the players will start with manual labor, not monster hunting, requiring tools and rations. He recalls that the players' clones are living beings who will need food to survive. He imagines hungry players turning on him, realizing food is key to maintaining control. A quick calculation reveals that feeding 5 players for a week would cost 70 chips more than he has. Adopting his predecessor's cynical mindset, he devises a plan to feed them cheap green wheat instead. With a new strategy, he prepares to head back to the recycling center to get what he needs. As he opens his door, he's startled by a young woman standing right outside. He recognizes the girl as Xiaoyu, who apologizes for her sudden appearance. She shyly explains she heard noises and came to check if he was being robbed. He awkwardly thanks her for her concern, which brings a happy smile to her face. Xiaoyu eagerly offers to watch his house for him whenever he's gone. She explains with a cheerful blush that she's usually bored at home anyway. His cynical wasteland instincts kick in, warning her internally about the dangers of trusting strangers. He then recalls seeing her before, realizing she's been his struggling neighbor all along. Softening his stance, he pulls out a rare pre-war lollipop to appease her. After a moment of disbelief, she gratefully accepts the treat, promising to keep it a secret. Her attempt to bite the hard candy ends in confusion, having never encountered such a thing. Seeing her struggle, Chu Guang gently offers to show her how to eat it. He carefully unwraps the gleaming red candy, a treasure from a forgotten time. As she savors the sweet taste for the first time, he can't help but pity the harsh life she's had to endure. A single lick of the candy sends an astonished blush across Xiaoyu's face. Overwhelmed with joy, she declares it's the sweetest thing she's ever experienced. Chu Guang smiles warmly, glad his small gift could bring her such simple happiness. She playfully points out that this is the first time she's ever seen his stoic expression break. She continues to savor the candy, completely captivated by the delicious and unfamiliar flavor. In a gesture of pure innocence, she offers him a taste of her newfound treasure. Standing on her toes, she closes the distance between them to share the sweet treat. He's taken aback as she insists he try the lollipop, holding it right up to his face. Gently pushing down her hat, he tells her to stop playing and watch his house while he's away. By the time she looks up, he has already vanished, leaving her to wonder where he went. Xiaoyu enthusiastically calls out, promising to guard his home while he's gone. Meanwhile, Chugun descends into the depths of Shelter 404's Zone B1. A confident smirk crosses his face as he realizes 3 days have passed, meaning the players are due to arrive. Elsewhere, several individuals lie in high-tech pods, their minds preparing to enter the new world. Their consciousnesses are drawn towards a brilliant light, marking their transition into the game. The first player, a blonde man, materializes inside a bubbling stasis tube. His eyes fly open with a jolt as he awakens submerged in a strange fluid. The pod drains and lowers, releasing him into the sterile environment of the shelter. He steps out, covered in a slimy residue from the birthing chamber. Looking around, he sees 4 other disoriented players emerging from their own pods, all equally confused. The white-haired player tests the game's physics on his own face, shocked by the realistic pain. Another player is crestfallen, realizing the game has locked his gender, dashing his hopes of creating a female avatar. A third player, the intelligence-focused type, polishes his glasses, stunned by the game's hyper-realistic immersion. The blonde player is suddenly struck by the game's fidelity, even noticing the sensation of his clothes drying. The player's discussion is cut short as a nearby door illuminates with a bright crackling light. The door slides open to reveal the imposing silhouette of a man and a small robot companion. The figure steps forward, revealing himself as Chu Guang, who declares the players are needed to reclaim their homeland. He then introduces himself as the administrator, codenamed Dawn, and directs their attention to his assistant. His assistant is revealed to be a small, bunny-eared robot who offers a polite greeting. The players are left completely speechless, staring in wide-eyed disbelief at the scene before them. A system notice confirms the players are completely stunned by his dramatic entrance. Chu Guang smirks, knowing he's successfully established his authority from the very beginning. The players erupt with questions, asking about missions, game mechanics, and character customization. He shuts them down with a cold glare, handing them a resident handbook and telling them to memorize the rules. With the players in tow, he leads them and his robot out of the shelter and into a dense, overgrown forest. Reading the rules, the players realize the administrator can ban them, forcing them to tread carefully. He stops to deliver a somber speech, reminding them they are the lucky few to survive a war that ended 2 centuries ago. Chu Guang passionately calls on them to fulfill their oath and help rebuild civilization in the wasteland. After explaining they're safe from radiation, he points to an axe and gives them their first mission: collect wood. He reveals their goal is to repair a nearby nursing home and gather fuel to survive the approaching winter. Fired up by his speech, the players enthusiastically accept their mission, while Chu Guang gives a final warning not to stray too far. He cautions them about dangerous mutants, instructing them to retreat on sight rather than engage in a fight. As the players venture into the woods, the robot expresses concern, but Chu Guang tasks it with monitoring them from a high vantage point. The robot reveals it can't climb stairs, forcing a weary Chu Guang to agree to carry it. From above, the players are seen dispersing through the forest to begin their wood-gathering task. One of the players demonstrates surprising strength, felling a large tree with a single mighty swing. The blonde player complains about his weak build compared to the muscular white-haired player, while another notes his own enhanced strength. He then daydreams about his powerful physique impressing women, disappointed by their absence in the wasteland. The intelligent player speculates that their different stats are due to their origins, proposing they might be cryogenically frozen survivors. He then offers a second theory. They are artificial clones, which would logically explain the game's respawn mechanic. The intelligent player passionately speculates about unique game mechanics, while his companions note his typical gaming obsession. The blonde player, Knight 10, suggests they venture deeper into the forest to see what they can find. He daydreams about encountering beautiful elven women, a common trope in fantasy games. Another player shatters his illusion, reminding him they're more likely to find horrifying mutants in this nuclear wasteland. His teammates quickly shut him down, recalling the administrator's strict rules and the danger of facing monsters with limited gear. Annoyed but intimidated by Chu Guang's authority, the blonde player reluctantly agrees to follow the rules. A sudden unseen event catches him completely off guard, his expression turning to shock. He drops his axe in surprise, letting it fall to the forest floor. A red warning icon flashes above his head as a wave of dread washes over him. A brilliant flash of light erupts nearby, sending one of the other players hurtling through the air. The blonde player hits the dirt, the shock of the sudden attack etched across his face. As black feathers drift down, he realizes he narrowly dodged a devastating blow from a swift, winged creature. A terrifying, glowing mutant bird with crimson eyes materializes before him, its talons poised to strike. The creature dives straight for him, making the player question why he's the sole target of its fury. Meanwhile, back at the shelter, the small robot stands guard at the darkened entrance. Its calm demeanor shatters as it receives an urgent alert, realizing the players are in grave danger. A system message confirms a new item has been unlocked, an active matter extractor. Chu Guang reads the instructions, learning the device can synthesize clones using biological material from carcasses. He closes the manual, finally understanding the purpose of this strange new technology. Gazing at the massive extractor, he discovers that even the dangerous mutants plaguing the wasteland can be used as a resource. Chu Guang smirks, realizing he's finally found a way to gather materials for his clone synthesizer. His moment of triumph is cut short as his panicked robot assistant rushes in with an urgent problem. The robot frantically reports that a large bird is attacking the players near the nursing home. Xiaoyu is taken aback, confused by the sudden appearance of a dangerous bird. The creature is revealed to be a monstrous, red-eyed mutant bird, letting out a terrifying cry. In the forest, the players regroup, with the blonde player still shaken from his near-death experience. His companions commend his incredible reflexes, while the intelligent player identifies the creature as a type of raven. He deduces it's a mutant, explaining they are beings warped by radiation according to the game's official website. The blonde player is baffled, remembering the website as nothing more than a simple registration page. The intelligent player coolly reveals a mutant gallery was recently added, showcasing the wasteland's horrifying bestiary. The muscular player snaps everyone back to reality, insisting they must deal with the giant raven. With a look of pure determination, he rallies his terrified teammates. As the raven circles menacingly, one player proposes a cautious defensive strategy, but the intelligent player grits his teeth, clenching his fist as if preparing to defy that plan. In a flash, he completely vanishes, leaving only a faint outline where he stood. He reappears behind his cowering teammates, furious at their lack of courage. The enraged raven lets out a silent, terrifying cry as it dives toward the players. Confused, the players all deny provoking the creature, wondering who threw the stone. A close-up reveals a hand flicking a glowing blue stone directly into the mutant's furious gaze. A mysterious new player leaps from the shadows, delivering a powerful kick straight to the raven's head. The powerful blow sends the mutant raven reeling, revealing the attacker to be the administrator, Chu Guang. He firmly grips his makeshift weapon, a sturdy metal pipe ready for the creature's retaliation. With a confident smirk, Chu Guang dismisses the fearsome mutant as nothing more than a simple beast. The raven's glowing red eye reflects the administrator's hand, confirming he was the one who provoked it. The enraged creature recovers midair, locking into a tense standoff with the lone administrator below. Chu Guang taunts the beast, confidently asserting that human intellect will always triumph over brute strength. As the raven dives, he charges forward, meeting the monster head-on in a dramatic silhouette. Hiding in the bushes, the other players watch in disbelief, stunned by the administrator's overwhelming power. A shower of black feathers falls from the sky, signaling the swift and decisive end of the battle. The players are utterly starstruck, their fear replaced with pure admiration for their incredibly cool and powerful administrator. In the aftermath of the battle, the defeated mutant is now a roasted mutant falcon sizzling over a makeshift grill. The players question if the creature is safe to eat, but Chu Guang reassures them and corrects their identification. It's a falcon. He explains to the stunned players that mutations are caused by more than just radiation, citing viruses and bioweapons. While turning the roast, Chu Guang cryptically warns them that humans can often be a greater threat than any mutant. After a taste, he sighs, noting the meal would be perfect with salt, a rare commodity in the wasteland. As the feast nears completion, he casually suggests they can just refrigerate any leftovers from the massive bird. Chu Guang then slyly reveals that the mayor of this survival camp happens to own a fridge inside his castle. The players are left speechless, their minds reeling from the revelation of a mayor and a castle in this desolate world. The blonde player's imagination runs wild, picturing himself as the Lord Mayor being welcomed home by a staff of beautiful maids. His fantasy escalates to him enjoying the lavish perks of his new imagined title, blushing at the thought of the luxurious lifestyle. The muscular player snaps his daydreaming teammate back to reality, asking Chu Guang about their wood-gathering quota. With a grim expression, Chu Guang simply tells them to gather as much wood as they possibly can. He realizes these unmotivated players need a proper incentive, as they lack any real drive for survival. A sly grin spreads across his face as he introduces a point system, turning their labor into a game with prizes. The players drool in disbelief as he reveals the prizes are pieces of the roasted falcon, priced out by the point. The promise of a good meal instantly re-energizes the players, who declare their sudden surge of motivation. Fueled by the promise of roasted falcon, the team charges into the forest with newfound determination to chop trees. Their burst of energy quickly fades, leaving the entire team collapsed in a heap of exhaustion. Standing proudly over a massive pile of logs, Chu Guang announces they've collectively earned over 2,000 contribution points. The muscular player, the top earner, triumphantly cashes in his points for a massive roasted leg, boasting that the work was easy. The blonde and agile players celebrate their impressive point totals, congratulating each other on a job well done. Meanwhile, the intelligent player is frustrated with his lower score, blaming his real-world physical limitations. Chu Guang observes his players comforting their dejected teammate, realizing the roasted falcon was the perfect motivator. He grimly imagines that a lesser reward might have led to a violent mutiny from the disgruntled players. He then reveals the full scope of the point system, which includes buying revival coins, but warns of a 3-day respawn timer. The players seem unimpressed by the current rewards, but the agile player wisely suggests they should hoard points for the game's full release. Chu Guang considers the language barrier, realizing he needs to create a translator since the players can't understand the wasteland's native tongue. A player questions the lack of electricity, prompting Chu Guang to explain their limited resources and ask if anyone has engineering knowledge. The promise of a special reward for solving the power issue immediately captures the intelligent player's attention. However, the blonde player offers a ridiculously simple solution, earning him looks of utter disdain from his teammates. Chu Guang patiently explains the logistical nightmare of running power lines, shooting down the simple-minded suggestion. With the day's work done, he dismisses the players, noting that their time in the game is up for now. As the players reluctantly head back to log out, they marvel at the game's realism, leaving Chu Guang alone in the wasteland. He stands among their stasis pods, realizing he needs a 24-hour workforce to keep the outpost secure. His robotic assistant suddenly appears, offering a surprising report on the player's physical condition. The administrator learns the stasis pods not only sustain the clones, but also scan and back up their genetic progress. It's revealed that each player's clone is based on a different DNA type, predisposing them to certain strengths. Chu Guang finally understands the massive power gap, realizing the muscular player's strength was literally coded into his DNA. He's introduced to the concept of genetic development, a leveling system that can push a clone to its ultimate potential. A status screen reveals the player's current progress is minuscule, but the robot confirms that intense survival training can boost their stats. A chibi montage comically illustrates each player's natural inclination, from brute strength to focused intellect. Chu Guang deviously realizes his players have innate talents, planning to create specialized training to maximize their potential. The scene abruptly shifts from the wasteland to the modern-day dorms of Jinling University. Inside, the intelligent player is revealed to be Professor Yan Feng, who sits in his room holding the game's VR helmet. Still obsessed with the in-game power problem, he decides to consult a colleague about electric generators. At the university cafeteria, Professor Yan grows frustrated with the slow lunch line, his real-world hunger mounting. A handsome man known as Professor Wang enters, instantly capturing the hearts of nearby female students. Professor Wang joins Yan Feng's table, charmingly greeting the students and advising them not to skip their meal. The female students are completely smitten, swooning over the thoughtful and handsome professor. Professor Wang then notices Yan Feng is intensely studying a book on electrical engineering, questioning his sudden interest. Yan Feng attempts to justify his research by claiming he's just reading a post-apocalyptic novel. Professor Wang looks at him with amusement, clearly unconvinced by the sudden literary interest. He frames his in-game problem as a hypothetical question about how survivors would generate electricity. Wang dismisses the query, telling his colleague not to take fiction so seriously. The handsome professor leans in close, his intense gaze making Yan Feng visibly flustered. Wang then teases that such knowledge is only useful if one could actually travel to a post-apocalyptic world. The oddly specific comment makes Yan Feng's blood run cold as he adjusts his glasses. His mind races with paranoia, wondering if Wang is another beta tester and how he could possibly know. Professor Wang suddenly breaks into a cheerful laugh, reassuring him that it was all just a joke. Yan Feng sighs in relief, concluding that his secret is safe and Wang isn't a player after all. Professor Wang feigns ignorance, asking Yan Feng to describe the setting of his supposed novel. Yan Feng, committed to his cover story, explains the world is set 200 years after a nuclear war. Wang expertly breaks down the scenario, noting that an EMP would have destroyed most sophisticated electronics. Yan Feng's suggestion of using common generators is shot down due to inevitable decay and lack of fuel. Just as Yan Feng loses hope, Wang slyly suggests there might be a viable solution after all. Desperate for an answer, Yan Feng eagerly prepares to take notes on his colleague's insight. Wang explains that a simple car alternator can be repurposed to generate a small but stable 12V current. He elaborates that an inverter could power larger appliances, all while privately judging Yan Feng's obsessive note-taking. Having provided the crucial information, Wang prepares to leave for his afternoon class, offering future help. Swarmed by adoring students, Wang cleverly deflects their attention by suggesting they ask the flustered Professor Yan Feng instead. The female students immediately swarm the flustered Professor Yan, begging for his academic help instead. Ignoring their pleas, Yan Feng furiously jots down notes, already planning how to find a car in the wasteland. Elsewhere, the muscular player feels his phone buzz, instantly hoping for new information about the game. He finds a detailed post from the agile player, who is already sharing his in-depth analysis of the game online. The scene shifts to the agile player's room, revealing a wall of gaming trophies and a picture of his past victories. He begins a live stream, deciding it's easier to talk about his experience than to type it all out. The agile player explains the two NPCs feel incredibly real, suspecting a hidden favorability system is at play. He demonstrates the game's unique pain threshold, showing his viewers how minor sensations are felt while major injuries are numbed. He suggests that while he enjoys the immersion, the developers should consider letting players customize their pain settings. When asked about the death penalty, he confirms he hasn't died yet but knows it involves losing points and a 3-day respawn cooldown. He nervously admits he's too scared to test the death penalty himself, hoping another player will volunteer. He then makes a direct plea to the game's administrator, requesting the option to change his character's gender. Back in the wasteland, Chu Guang watches the stream with disdain, unimpressed by the player's demands. His robot assistant reports a surge in player reservations, but Chu Guang decides to prepare a new round of tests instead of expanding immediately. The administrator smirks, realizing the streamer's popularity has flushed out all potential players and even landed him an admin role in their group chat. Seeing his admin status confirmed in the group chat, he prepares to address the players using voice input. He joins the chat, confirming the streamer's analysis and promising to provide additional official information. He officially announces the next testing round, including a registration link and a questionnaire to determine player stats, while firmly denying the gender swap option. The recap then explains the game's favorability system, showing how a low score results in a cold reception from NPCs. In contrast, a high favorability score can unlock special rewards, hidden quests, and even exclusive character classes. The players are stunned by the revelation of hidden missions and classes, with the streamer getting a comically intense nosebleed. Chu Guang wraps up his announcement, encouraging the streamer to post his review on the official forums for everyone to see. The streamer is overjoyed, his motivation soaring after receiving praise directly from the game's administrator. Back in his base, Chu Guang relaxes, pleased with the successful integration of the first batch of players. He remembers a crucial detail, realizing players need the official gaming helmet to link their consciousness to the clones. This sparks a question in his mind, as he asks his robot assistant if he too can connect to a clone, despite not needing a helmet. The robot sadly informs him that it's impossible, as his genetic data isn't in the system and the clones weren't made for him. Unfazed, Chu Guang affectionately pats the robot and suggests using his physical exam data to calculate his stats instead. The robot projects a hologram of Chu Guang's impressive level 5 stats, prompting him to wonder about his genetic development progress. Curious about his new recruits, he then asks the robot to pull up the stats for the 4 current alpha players. The robot displays the players' stats, revealing their genetic potential is barely unlocked, while Chu Guang ponders his own mysterious origins. He finds the uncertainty of his existence exhilarating, preferring a life of unknowns over a predictable fate. Suddenly, he receives a Novice Guide achievement and 10 reward points for successfully managing his first players. His robot assistant informs him he can now afford a mid-level blind box, which he decides to open with cautious optimism. A prize materializes from the gacha machine, and the little robot eagerly awaits the reveal. He wins a muscle-strengthening injection, a permanent stat boost that he finds far more useful than his previous rewards. Chu Guang hesitates, questioning if the 200-year-old serum is still safe to use. The robot confidently vouches for the top-tier quality of all items stored within the advanced shelter. Convinced, he prepares to inject himself, hoping for the best as he readies the device. The serum is administered, beginning a powerful transformation at the cellular level. Chu Guang flexes his arm, expecting to see an immediate result from the injection. Feeling nothing, he wonders aloud if the ancient serum had expired, but his robot urges patience. He sighs, tossing the injector aside, concluding that at least there were no negative side effects. But just as he relaxes, a sharp jolt courses through him, his eye flaring with sudden intensity. His entire body is engulfed in a strange energy, a warm sensation spreading from his chest. He endures the overwhelming surge, his eyes glowing red as the serum's power peaks. The intense feeling abruptly fades, leaving him feeling completely drained and bewildered. He stares at his hands, now convinced the 200-year-old serum was a dud after all. After throwing a few test punches and feeling no different, he decides he dodged a bullet with the expired medicine. Just to be certain, he asks his robot assistant for a complete diagnostic scan of his body. The scan reveals the serum worked after all, boosting his strength and physique by 1 point each. His robot assistant explains this new stat total puts him close to double the strength of an average untrained adult male. Realizing the true scale of his power-up, Chu Guang clenches his fist, ecstatic with the results. His excitement quickly shifts back to business as he asks his robot for the current time. The robot projects a holographic clock displaying that it's exactly 4:08 a.m. It reminds him the players will log in soon, prompting Chuguang to prepare for their arrival. As his cheerful robot zips away, Chuguang begins his preparations in the background. He then checks his mission log, surprised to find it has suddenly expanded from 1 quest to 20. The new missions are all daily tasks, including repairs and resource gathering, which he speculates will refresh each day. Realizing he can't complete all 20 missions alone, he devises a cunning plan to use his players to do the work for him. He prioritizes the generator mission, envisioning a primitive, powerless existence for his players. He then contrasts this with a life of luxury, determined to elevate his base beyond a primitive state. Realizing he needs help, he decides to recruit more players to tackle the problem. He smirks as he sees 35 applicants, attributing the surge to the streamer's influence in the group chat. He considers typical game advertisements, imagining a cheesy promotion for Wasteland Online. Frustrated, he realizes traditional advertising is out of the question since his game is completely off the grid. Worried about attracting troublesome users, he decides to implement stricter requirements for new beta testers. He devises a plan to filter applicants by making them register and provide personal details before they can even apply. He adds an attribute survey to the application process, confident it will attract more serious gamers. Just as he finishes, a notification from the streamer's Bull and Horse Club group chat pops up on his screen. Meanwhile, a stressed-out fashion designer clutches her head, completely drained of creative inspiration. As a busy design director, she dismisses the lively group chat, believing she has no time for games. She pauses from her work, her attention now fully drawn to the ongoing conversation. Reading the chat's over-the-top praise for a new game, she scoffs, suspecting they're all just paid actors. Her skepticism wavers when she sees a veteran player she respects also singing the game's praises. A reservation link appears in the chat, and her curiosity finally gets the better of her. She clicks the link, which directs her to the official registration page for Wasteland Online. The page details a unique beta test application using a questionnaire to assign player attributes. Cute illustrations explain the strength attribute, covering everything from melee damage to throwing distance. The next section details the agility attribute, showcasing its importance for speed, evasion, and reflexes. The page continues, explaining how physique governs vitality and resistance, illustrated with a healthy chibi and another in a hazmat suit. A humorous chibi illustration then shows a character getting sick from eating glowing mushrooms, demonstrating the consequences of low physique. Next, the intelligence attribute is detailed, impacting learning ability and how many neural devices a player can operate simultaneously. Finally, the perception stat is described, enhancing a player's intuition to spot dangers and uncover hidden secrets. After reviewing the standard RPG stats, the designer sighs, unimpressed and ready to dismiss the game entirely. But a single sentence on the registration page catches her eye, causing her to lean in with sudden interest. The game promises future updates for plastic surgery and body transformation, a concept that immediately hooks her. Her imagination ignites, envisioning the limitless possibilities of futuristic fashion and body modification. Leaping from her seat, she realizes this game is the exact source of inspiration she has been desperately searching for. Overcome with joy and creative energy, she celebrates her breakthrough, completely captivated by the game's potential. With a manic grin, she furiously types on her keyboard, determined to pre-order the game immediately. After completing the reservation, she leans back, hopeful that the game will provide the creative spark she desperately needs. Back at the base, Chuguang receives a notification confirming a new wave of player applications. He observes the influx of applicants, concluding that his new recruitment strategy has paid off handsomely. As the clock strikes 6 a.m., his expression turns serious, signaling it's time for the next phase. He stands with a confident smirk, knowing it's time to stop processing applications and welcome the players online. A newly arrived perception-type player immediately looks distressed, overwhelmed by his heightened senses. The robot welcomes the returning players, who immediately begin checking and complaining about their assigned attribute points. The perception-type player's condition worsens as he clutches his stomach, clearly in agony. He desperately asks the robot for a toilet, only to be informed that the primitive base has no such facilities. The other players restrain their distressed comrade, fearing his outburst will lower their standing with the administrator. With pupils dilated in panic, the perception-type player desperately tries to control his overwhelming physical discomfort. Chuguang appears before the bickering group, his stern gaze demanding they fall in line immediately. Intimidated, the players quickly form a neat row, though one continues to squirm in obvious agony. Chukyo internally smirks, pleased his favorability system is working, and considers the urgent need to prepare the outpost before winter. He briefs them on their new objectives, stockpiling resources and building defenses, pointing them toward a mission board for specifics. The players react with excitement to the updated mission system, eager to prove their worth, while one notes the absence of a generator quest. Just as Chu Guang prepares to send them off, the tormented player can't hold back any longer. He frantically interrupts, begging to use a toilet, a request that makes Chu Guang realize he's overlooked a critical logistical issue. After a brief moment of shock, Chu Guang coolly gestures for the desperate player to follow him. The desperate player begs Chu Guang to slow down, as his comrades suddenly realize they're all suffering from the same affliction. After being led outside, the player finds relief in the wasteland, while his friends marvel at the game's disgustingly realistic bodily functions. The group returns to the outpost, looking thoroughly defeated and uncomfortable after their unpleasant outdoor experience. They complain about the primitive conditions, with one player regretting his choice of a particularly irritating leaf for hygiene. Chu Guang watches them, realizing he missed his chance to suggest a better alternative before they all fled in desperation. He's left momentarily bewildered, completely stumped by this unforeseen and very basic logistical crisis. Having endured the ordeal, the players band together, unanimously demanding the construction of a proper toilet. A resourceful player steps forward with a detailed proposal, suggesting they build a latrine with a collection pit. He elaborates on his plan, explaining how to mix the waste with other materials to create safe, usable compost. His brilliant idea culminates in the production of valuable fertilizer, turning a sanitation problem into a resource opportunity. The player explains that a nearby farm already collects waste for fertilizer, giving Chu Guang a brilliant idea. He then proposes a more advanced system, a biogas digester that converts organic matter into methane. This methane could then fuel batteries, effectively creating a self-sufficient waste-powered energy source. Chu Guang realizes that if a neighboring farm can do it, then building their own power station is a real possibility. He inwardly praises the players, admitting these new recruits are far more resourceful than he ever expected. Another player points out a major obstacle, stating they lack the materials needed for sealing and gas storage. Chu Guang confidently counters, explaining the wasteland is full of discarded plastic that survivors are too afraid to burn. He directs them to the mission board, which he found nearby, revealing it's already populated with tasks and rewards. The mission list details requests for wood, water containers, and recyclable waste in exchange for contribution points. With a knowing smile, Chu Guang announces he has just added a new mission for collecting plastic bags and bottles. The players buzz with excitement, realizing their ingenuity can influence the game and unlock hidden quests from the administrator. A single hand shoots up, signaling another player is ready to seize the initiative. The player, Gale, boldly interrupts, proposing a simpler solution to their power problem. He suggests salvaging a generator from a nearby car, a common component they could easily repurpose. Chu Guang reveals he's already searched the area, but Gale remains convinced a second look will yield the part they need. Intrigued by his determination, Chu Guang agrees to the mission, but not without setting a condition. He warns of the wasteland's dangers, stating that Gale will require a bodyguard for the perilous journey. The other players tense up, wondering who will be chosen as the tank for the brainy but vulnerable Gale. With a mischievous grin, Chu Guang announces his selection for the dangerous escort mission. He points directly at the stunned blonde player, pairing him with Gale and sending them off to prepare for the expedition. The blonde player salutes and accepts the mission, while others question the administrator's choice of a perception type over a combat specialist. He confidently walks off with Gale, leaving the other players to grumble about his cocky attitude. Gale consults a map showing their short route from the base to a nearby parking lot. The duo ventures into the desolate, vine-choked ruins, surrounded by the skeletons of old cars. The blonde player stares in dismay at his compass, realizing the area has been picked clean by previous scavengers. Losing hope, he suggests they abandon the fruitless search and return to the outpost. Gale refuses to give up, determined to find something of value before they leave. He meticulously inspects the interior of a wrecked vehicle, undeterred by the decay. With a sudden burst of effort, Gale struggles to lift a heavy, unseen object from within the car. He urgently calls for his stunned partner to stop standing around and help him. The blonde player reluctantly agrees, realizing he knows surprisingly little about his longtime gaming partner. With a combined, desperate effort, they manage to heave the heavy component out of the vehicle. They stare at their prize, a vine-covered machine they tentatively identify as a generator. The blonde player cheekily admits his only driving experience comes from video games, much to Gale's dismay. Gale's face twitches with irritation, his mind filled with a stampede of silent, fluffy curses. He then turns the tables, reminding his partner that he's the one who supposedly owns a car. The blonde player confesses his vehicle is just a bicycle, shattering Gale's hopes for any real-world expertise. Gale pops the hood of the car, but is baffled to find a crucial component missing from the engine. He explains that while the engine is there, the power supply has been completely stripped out. The blonde player pragmatically suggests they search a nearby dumpster, since the car has clearly been looted by previous survivors. Gale speculates that the pre-war cars were so advanced they might have used a remote power source. He sighs in defeat, concluding that finding a working generator here is impossible. Just then, his partner's excited shout about a major discovery shatters the quiet. Gale rushes over, sickle in hand, eagerly asking if he finally found a generator. Instead, the blonde player reveals a vine-covered hole, suggesting they explore the waterway entrance below. Gale stops him, pointing out the danger of entering an area unknown even to the administrator. His partner grins, arguing that an uncharted location is the perfect place to find hidden quests. He gets lost in a heroic daydream, imagining himself battling monsters to rescue captives in a dungeon. In his fantasy, the grateful survivors praise him as he revels in his own imagined heroism. Gale dismisses the daydream, having his own fantasy of finding a pristine generator in a hidden treasure box. The blonde player enthusiastically agrees to explore, while Gale reluctantly follows, reminding him of the administrator's warning. He recalls Chu Guang's stern advice: avoid mutants, run when possible, and never turn your back in a fight. They step into the dark tunnel, their path illuminated only by strange, glowing blue mushrooms. The blonde player wades into the murky water, splashing near the bioluminescent fungi. Gale identifies the glowing objects as a type of fungus, a species neither of them has ever encountered. His partner picks one, mesmerized by its glowing patterns and immediately wondering if it's edible. Gale quickly scolds him, warning against eating unknown fungi, and instead telling him to collect them in a salvaged plastic bag. After filling their bag, Gale suggests they head back, but his partner insists on venturing deeper into the passage. Ignoring Gale's protests, the blonde player dashes ahead, convinced that greater treasures lie deeper within the tunnel. His cocky grin instantly vanishes, replaced by sheer terror as he sees what lurks in the darkness ahead. Gale, caught off guard, nearly collides with his partner, angrily demanding to know why he froze. A sense of dread washes over the blonde player, his instincts screaming that something is terribly wrong. He recognizes the suffocating pressure from a previous encounter with a terrifying winged mutant. A monstrous roar echoes through the tunnel, confirming their fears that they've stumbled upon a mutant. Without a word, the blonde player grabs a bewildered Gale and bolts, screaming at him to run for his life. The source of their terror is revealed: two massive, fanged, worm-like creatures emerging from the darkness. Meanwhile, back at the outpost, two other players collapse in exhaustion after completing a grueling manual labor task. Chu Gao inspects their work, newly installed latrines, and rewards their efforts with a generous amount of contribution points. He then delivers an impromptu lecture on sanitation, explaining the practical if unpleasant science of turning waste into fertilizer. Chu Guang soberly outlines the settlement's next major challenges: securing water from a mutant-infested area and preventing disease outbreaks. A player enthusiastically suggests they build a bathhouse in preparation for future female members. He gets lost in a daydream, imagining the necessity of providing proper bathing facilities. His friend eagerly agrees, adding his own fantasies about the potential perks of a communal bathhouse. While the two players revel in their inappropriate thoughts, Chu Guang silently judges their shamelessness. Their daydreams are abruptly cut short by desperate screams for help echoing from just outside the outpost. The two fleeing players, Gale and his partner, barely manage to avoid falling into the newly dug latrine pit. They continue to sprint in a blind panic, their faces twisted in sheer terror from whatever is chasing them. The duo tumbles over a ledge with an enraged Gale yelling at his partner for his recklessness. Their bag of collected bioluminescent mushrooms bursts open, scattering the valuable fungi into the air. Landing in a pile of leaves, the dazed pair is met by the other players, who explain they cushioned the fall. Chu Guang praises the duo for their find, holding up one of the glowing mushrooms they brought back. The strange fungi are promptly thrown into a pot and boiled over a crackling campfire. While the other players slurp down the soup with gusto, Chuguang questions his own cooking skills, finding the taste unremarkable. Intrigued, Chuguang pulls Gale aside, holding up a mushroom and demanding to know its origin. Gale recounts their discovery near a waterway, but his partner loudly interrupts to claim all the credit. The blonde player's mind races with possibilities, wondering if the fungi are edible or perhaps ingredients for powerful potions. Chuguang reveals the mushrooms are nicknamed Blue Angels, sarcastically promising a heavenly vision to anyone foolish enough to eat one raw. He clarifies that while toxic, these blue umbrella mushrooms contain a valuable peptide used to create anti-radiation medicine. A wave of relief washes over Chuguang as he warns them that the fungi typically grow near the nests of mutant leeches. He then describes the horrifying life cycle of the leeches, which grow from hand-sized juveniles into monstrous man-eating worms. Chuguang concludes his lecture with a horrifying depiction of a fully grown leech consuming its victim. The two players are struck with terror, realizing they had just stumbled upon the very gates of a mutant hell. A shaken Gale confirms he marked the waterway's location on a map for the administrator. Chukyo internally praises his players, pleased that his dependable leaks have pinpointed the nest. He awards Gale and his partner a generous 2/20 contribution points for their dangerous expedition. The duo gratefully accepts the reward, while Chuguang privately decides not to encourage such recklessness with even greater prizes. He now faces a new threat, realizing he must deal with the leech nest, but needs a generator first. Chuguang calculates the value of the mushrooms, realizing the haul is worth a fortune on the black market. He prepares to leave for a supply run, instructing the players to stay put and await his robot's signal to return. The remaining players ponder a new mystery: why a key ingredient for anti-radiation medicine would grow in such a place. A player questions why the reward for such a dangerous find was so low, barely equivalent to chopping 2 trees. Another player with glasses agrees, theorizing that rewards should scale with difficulty and that something is amiss. The first player has a sudden realization, snapping his fingers as he declares the key factor is priority. He reminds them of the administrator's main directive: survival above all else, a detail the blonde player admits he skipped over. The player with glasses speculates that the game allows for player-triggered missions beyond the standard mission board. Another player illustrates this point, recalling how their suggestions for toilets and mushroom gathering became official tasks. They conclude that any action helping the shelter earns points, with the reward directly proportional to the value created. The lead theorist smirks, pleased that his companions are finally understanding the game's deeper mechanics. He then brings up the favorability system, causing a moment of clarity for some, but leaving the blonde player utterly bewildered. The player confidently explains that triggering their own missions is the path to greater rewards and earning the administrator's favor. The other players finally grasp the concept, realizing the path to power lies in pleasing the administrator. But the lead theorist suddenly recoils, struck by a terrifying flaw in his own logic. He explains his theory assumes the administrator is just a complex AI within a hyper-realistic game. However, he admits that if the administrator is a simple program, their entire strategy is useless. The theorist then drops a bombshell. The administrator's intelligence is so high, he might actually be a real person. The players are stunned, with the blonde one immediately fearing they're being exploited for some unknown purpose. Gathered around their strategy board, the group contemplates the chilling possibility of being mere pawns. The theorist calms them down, suggesting they focus on gaining favorability before the next round of beta testing begins. He extends a hand, proposing they form an official team to secure their advantage. The group eagerly agrees, joining hands to forge an alliance and dominate the game's future. The theorist solidifies his leadership, declaring they will now work as a coordinated team. He immediately assigns a scouting mission to investigate mutant distribution near the wetland park. He cautions them to avoid fights and prioritize finding a safe water source, much to the blonde player's annoyance. The theorist then delegates woodcutting to the brawny player, who eagerly accepts his new role. Meanwhile, Chuguang arrives at a bustling, grimy outpost with a caravan of pack animals. The camera focuses on the legs of a chained woman, marked with a barcode like a piece of property. The full view reveals the hooded woman being paraded through the settlement, a stark symbol of this harsh world. A group of leering men crudely comment on her appearance, pitying her unfortunate situation. A guard barks orders at the crowd, forcing them to unload the cargo and not delay the important visitor. An old man bows deeply to Chuguang, formally welcoming him on behalf of the local mayor. The caravan leader, List, presents the chained woman as a rare commodity for the local mayor. The mayor's subordinate promises to deliver the package safely, as is their custom. From a distance, Chu Guang observes the caravan's arrival, recognizing the infamous trader. He confirms the grim rumors about Boulder City's trade, realizing he's witnessing it firsthand. Chu Guang grins, seeing the caravan not as a threat, but as a golden opportunity to sell his valuable mushrooms. List dismissively pays the local laborers for their work, who grovel in gratitude. As the caravan prepares to leave, Chu Guang and his little robot watch from the dusty street. Xiaoyu intercepts List, cryptically offering a deal that immediately puts the caravan leader on guard. Wary of the stranger, List grips his rifle and demands to know who he is. Chu Guang calmly explains he's just a trader, confident his advanced armor will ensure the negotiation remains civil. The caravan leader sneers, mocking Chu Guang as just another new scavenger on the block. The trader scoffs at Chu Guang's introduction, telling him they don't deal in rubbish from small-timers. Chu Guang smirks, revealing 2 bags packed with glowing mushrooms, challenging List's definition of rubbish. Stunned by the valuable haul, List immediately changes his tune and demands to know the source. He casually mentions the deadly leech nest where he found them, making the guards recoil before List asks for his price. He confidently demands 200 chips for the 2 kilos, challenging the trader to bet on their exceptional value. The trader's swift acceptance makes Chu Guang kick himself for lowballing the offer so drastically. Frustrated, he pictures the corrupt mayor living lavishly off the massive profits from reselling his mushrooms. The trader voices his hope that their discreet transaction stays off the radar of the local recycler. Chu Guang mirrors the sentiment, confirming their mutual interest in discretion and earning the trader's respect. The trader proposes a new deal. Instead of cash, he offers his goods at a 20% discount. Chu Guang smirks, immediately asking to see the trader's selection of firearms. The trader snaps his fingers, readily agreeing to show his wares. He presents a bolt-action rifle for 200 chips, offering ammunition at a fair price. Chu Guang takes the rifle, testing its weight and balance as he aims down the sights. He questions the price, only for the trader to confirm the discount was included and offer a weaker alternative. Chu Guang internally fumes, realizing the trader is a shameless profiteer despite the supposed discount. He boldly counters the offer, demanding the rifle, more ammo, and extra chips for supplies. Chu Guang plays his trump card, reminding the trader of the massive, untapped mushroom supply he left behind. Understanding the implication, List realizes Chu Guang is proposing an investment, which Chu Guang frames as a 10-fold return. List strokes his chin, his mind racing with the immense profit he could make from the mushrooms, seeing the value in Chu Guang's offer. Convinced by the potential for wealth, List extends a hand to formally introduce himself, making an exception to his rule of not dealing with scavengers. Chu Guang firmly shakes the trader's hand, introducing himself and solidifying their new, mutually beneficial partnership. Chu Guang maintains a confident smile, but internally he vows to make List pay 10-fold for the initial swindle. The deal now finalized, Chu Guang stands with his newly acquired rifle, having successfully negotiated for ammo and extra supplies. The trader examines a glowing blue specimen, privately noting that the most valuable treasures always come from the deadliest locations. Chu Guang smirks with satisfaction as he wraps a cloth around his new rifle, making the weapon his own. The trader completes his side of the bargain, dropping the promised chips for supplies into Chu Guang's outstretched hand. List notes with a hint of respect that very few people ever managed to take chips from him, marking Chu Guang as a rare case. With his new rifle slung over his shoulder, Chu Guang offers a confident smile, coolly attributing his success to simple luck. List wishes Chu Guang continued luck, reminding him that such treasures are always found in the deadliest of places. Chu Guang silently acknowledges the truth, contemplating the unknown number of mutants lurking in the nest. He knows from experience that conventional bullets are completely ineffective against their tough hides. The creatures also possess an incredible regenerative ability, making them a persistent threat. Even worse, attempting to cut them down only results in them multiplying into new individuals. He considers using fire but realizes it would destroy the valuable mushrooms, defeating the entire purpose. The trader claps him on the shoulder, stating he'll return at the end of the month for the 20 kilai of mushrooms. List sweetens the deal, offering 2,000 chips and the chance to place a custom order for goods. Chu Guang remains wary, internally accusing the profiteer of trying to swindle him yet again. List then directs him to a subordinate holding a tablet, allowing him to browse the available inventory. Chu Guang scrolls through the trader's inventory, noting the impressive, albeit pricey, gear. List guarantees the quality of his wares, confident that Chu Guang is familiar with such advanced equipment. As he browses, his eyes suddenly lock onto a particularly game-changing piece of technology. He's found a generator, a rare and invaluable item capable of providing a stable source of power. His attention then shifts to a powered exoskeleton, another piece of pre-war tech that could revolutionize his capabilities. Having seen enough, Chu Guang confirms his selection, ready to finalize the custom order. List praises his choice of the durable exoskeleton, then immediately tries to upsell him on batteries for the generator. The trader reveals his exorbitant battery prices, shamelessly framing the 150-chip cost as a bargain. List grows suspicious, questioning how a lone scavenger could possibly secure something as valuable and conspicuous as a generator. Chu Guang coolly dismisses the concern, cryptically assuring the trader he has a secure location far from the slums. Deciding to put the trader's mind at ease, Chu Guang offers a final, calculated reassurance. He then turns to leave, warning List that any trouble arising from their deal will be the trader's alone. As an afterthought, he asks about the discount on his new order, only for List to smugly confirm the prices were final. Furious at being swindled again, Chu Guang makes a rude gesture behind his back, silently vowing future revenge. With the deal done, he walks through the ruins at dusk, realizing it's too dangerous to return to his shelter. He decides to take refuge for the night in a nearby fortified shed. The next day, he finds himself in a bustling slum market, where vendors hawk basic necessities to a desperate crowd. He listens as the townsfolk barter for simple goods like salt and tobacco, observing the harsh reality of their lives. Suddenly, a loud proclamation cuts through the noise, announcing a mobilization order from the town's mayor. An official holds up a sign, revealing a crippling new tax demanding firewood and fur from every household. The townsfolk murmur in despair, trapped between the impossible tax and the threat of exile. Chu Guang observes a local big shot, realizing the mayor is simply lining his own pockets before winter. Unconcerned with their plight, he decides to leave the town's problems behind him. His departure is interrupted by a heated argument between a young man and a girl guarding a house. The man mocks her for protecting the property of a man he claims is already dead. The girl trembles with rage, clenching her fists in defiance. She vehemently denies his claims, insisting her brother is still alive despite his long absence. The man then tries to bully her into letting him scavenge parts from the house, but she fiercely rejects his offer. Losing his patience, he threatens her with violence, but she bravely holds her ground. The girl flinches in shock as the man prepares to strike her for her defiance. The bully sneers, justifying his actions by claiming her entire family has abandoned her. Suddenly, Chu Guang appears, catching the man's wrist and calmly questioning the rumors of his demise. The girl's face lights up with pure relief and joy as she recognizes her big brother. He effortlessly shoves the bully to the ground as the girl explains the man's attempts to tear down the house. Chu Guang pulls her behind him, vowing that with him here, no one will ever bully her again. He then turns his attention back to the troublemaker, addressing him with a mocking tone. His expression darkens as he offers the bully a choice: leave on his own or be forcibly removed. The two stand in a tense confrontation, with Chu Guang clearly holding all the power. Terrified, the bully stammers, unable to form a coherent response to the chilling threat. To emphasize his point, Chu Guang slowly unsheathes a sharp, gleaming blade. The bully stammers in terror, completely intimidated by Chu Guang's calm threat. He flees, shouting empty promises of retaliation as Chu Guang watches with a bored expression. The girl, Xiaoyu, turns to her protector with a blush, gratefully thanking him for his intervention. Chu Guang brushes off her thanks, but internally questions her intense, lingering gaze. He rewards her loyalty by offering her a lollipop, acknowledging her hard work guarding the house. She happily accepts the treat, thanking her big brother for the rare and thoughtful gift. Chu Guang offers to watch her house in the future, privately noting her loyalty is worth the lollipops. Their moment is interrupted as a man calls out to Xiaoyu, causing her to look over in surprise. Her father and brothers appear, carrying heavy sacks, and she seems flustered by their sudden return. Chu Qian instantly vanishes, wondering if Xiaoyu's family has forbidden her from associating with him. Stepping out from the shadows, Chu Guang reveals himself to Xiaoyu's surprised family. Her brother Yu Hu bluntly states he thought Chu Guang was dead, causing our hero a moment of shock. Chu Guang smirks, coolly replying that rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated. Yu-hu then explains the impossible tax levied by the mayor, which is why they were out gathering supplies. He invites Chu Guang on a dangerous hunt for deer, hoping to meet the quota and score some extra meat. Chu Guang declines, privately noting their hunting grounds are uncomfortably close to his own secret base. As they walk, Yu-hu points out that Chu Guang's solitary status is what makes him a target for local bullies. Suddenly, Yu-hu gets a bright idea, proposing a solution to Chu Guang's loneliness. He eagerly offers his sister's hand in marriage, suggesting they could even get married that very night. Stunned by the proposal, Chu Guang flatly refuses and makes a swift escape, leaving a bewildered Yu-hu in his dust. Yu-hu watches him flee, already dreaming of the powerful family connections the marriage could bring. Meanwhile, Chu Guang hides around a corner, utterly appalled by the absurd marriage proposal. His mind is immediately flooded with a disturbing fantasy of a future domestic life with Xiaoyu. The unsettling vision continues, showing a flustered Chu Guang being weighted on hand and foot. He violently shakes the thoughts away, absolutely refusing to entertain the idea, regardless of wasteland customs. The next day, back at his base, a new project is underway involving a large pile of freshly cut logs. His players discuss the problem of processing the green wood to prevent it from cracking and warping. One player explains the first option is to carefully dry the logs over a controlled fire. A second method involves painting the ends to allow for a slow, natural air drying process. The final, more difficult option is to soak the wood in water, a process entirely dependent on good weather. A player points out that the logs they gathered over 2 days could have already repaired the nursing home's walls. He continues, explaining that since the wood is unprocessed, the coming rain will quickly cause it to rot. His companion falls into a thoughtful silence, realizing the critical flaw in their current plan. Suddenly, the first player gets a bright idea, enthusiastically suggesting they use cement instead. He gestures to the ruins, pointing out the abundance of concrete waste they can easily salvage. The player explains they can mix the rubble with cement and steel to build simple but sturdy fortifications. His friend counters that this plan requires them to first find cement, coal, and a high-temperature kiln. Their debate is cut short as 2 other players return, excitedly announcing a major discovery. They report finding a new river east of Linghu Lake, a landmark not found on any of their maps. The blonde player proudly declares they have successfully explored the lake's entire eastern and southern shoreline. The returning players present a bucket of mud, much to their companion's surprise. Eager to prove their success, the blonde player reaches into his bag to retrieve their hand-drawn map. The map details the new river, marking dangerous mutant nests and a single safe area to draw water. His friend, however, is more interested in the bucket's contents, hopefully asking if it's cement. The explorers clarify that the substance is just mud they collected from the newly discovered riverbank. A flashback reveals they found the mud after an awkward encounter with a girl bathing in the river. The blue-haired player admits they brought it back, mistakenly believing it could be used as a building material. A more experienced player kneels down to inspect their find, ready to assess its true value. He dips a finger in the slurry, confirming it's useless for construction as it would wash away in the rain. But a smile spreads across his face as he realizes they've just found the perfect material to build their kiln. The other players are skeptical, questioning if he can actually build a kiln. The experienced player, Old White, confidently reminds them that anything is possible inside a game. He rallies the group with a bold declaration that in this sandbox world they can achieve anything. Taking charge, Old White immediately sends the 2 explorers back out to gather more mud for the project. The blonde player wearily wonders if Old White is a construction foreman, given his natural talent for ordering people around. Meanwhile, the remaining players decide to continue their own task of chopping down more trees. Old White's motivation is clear. He wants to impress the administrator with their hard work and ingenuity. Their work is brutally interrupted as the 2 explorers are chased back to base by a monstrous 2-headed bear. Hearing their desperate cries for help, Old White and his companion turn in alarm. The terrified players stumble back into the camp, one tripping and falling as he flees the pursuing beast. The blonde player screams in panic, desperately trying to get his fallen friend to escape. The monstrous bear towers over the terrified player, its twin maws ready to strike. Suddenly, Chu Guang snaps awake, his heart pounding from the vivid nightmare. He sits up in his desolate shack, clutching his rifle and realizing the gruesome scene was only a dream. His relief turns to despair as he surveys his empty supplies, all consumed by his 4 new recruits. Despite his frustration, he finds himself worrying about the players, picturing them bickering with his robotic assistant. His thoughts are cut short by a voice at his door. It's Xiaoyu, and he wonders why she's visiting so early. Opening the door, he finds her looking up at him, and he cautiously asks what she needs. With a bashful smile, Xiaoyu presents him with a carefully wrapped biscuit as a gift. Completely flustered by her kindness, Chu Guang blushes, pointing to himself in surprise. He gently gestures for her to lean closer, prompting a confused blush from Xiaoyu. She whispers that her brother, Yu Hu, actually made the biscuit and told her to lie about it. Xiaoyu is stunned, realizing Yu Hu is a cunning schemer trying to set them up. When asked why she confessed, Xiaoyu explains with a sweet smile that she couldn't bring herself to lie to him. Their moment is shattered by an unseen person asking if the outsider is going hunting. Xiaoyu panics, identifying the newcomers as Wang Defu and his brother, and Chu Guang quickly ushers her to safety. A large hooded archer and his sneering younger brother emerge from the ruins, the latter mocking Chu Guang. The older brother swiftly silences the boy with a crushing grip, demanding he stop talking nonsense. The imposing archer then brushes past Chu Guang, a silent and intimidating presence. Both men exchange a tense, challenging look, sizing each other up in a silent standoff. As the brothers depart, Chu Guang recognizes the formidable archer as a serious threat. Once they're gone, he turns to reassure Xiaoyu that the coast is clear before announcing his own plans to leave. Peeking from her hiding spot, a blushing Xiaoyu wishes him well and promises to look after his home. He gives her an affectionate pat, inwardly noting her charm but acknowledging she's still too young for him. His mind briefly flashes to a flustered fantasy of a grown-up Xiaoyu, a thought he quickly pushes aside for later. From above, various groups of survivors are seen venturing out from the dilapidated settlement. Chu Guang approaches a local merchant, ready to trade his chips for a supply of green wheat. He then inquires about tobacco leaves for curing meat, quickly striking a deal with the old vendor. Chu Guang smirks, knowing the tobacco will allow him to preserve his future kills into long-lasting jerky. The trade is complete as the merchant hands over a heavy sack of green wheat. The merchant questions Chu Guang's large purchase, but he defiantly asks if it's a problem. Flustered, the old man quickly backpedals, agreeing that saving up is always a good idea. As he leaves, Chu Guang berates himself for being careless, realizing his spending has drawn unwanted attention. He worries the town's mayor will see him as a threat and send assassins to stop him from forming a faction. He wistfully envies video game heroes who can carry endless items while effortlessly traversing monster-filled cities. Reality hits hard as he struggles to hoist the heavy sack of supplies onto his shoulder. The merchant notes his struggle, prompting Chu Guang to consider acquiring a two-headed cow for transport. Old Charlie's expression turns serious as he gives a final, stern warning to be careful out in the wasteland. Chu Guang departs, acknowledging the warning but reminding himself the merchant's ultimate loyalty is to the mayor. His figure disappears into the smoke and ruins of the desolate city, beginning his journey alone. The players excitedly announce the administrator's return, standing proudly beside their newly constructed kilns. Fukawa is completely baffled by the sight, as he never assigned a mission to build furnaces. He asks his recruits for a report on their progress and if they encountered any trouble while he was away. The players proudly report that while they met no one, they built everything needed to start producing their own cement. A helpful diagram explains the first step of their plan, burning tree bark to create plant ash. The next step involves filtering the ash with water to separate the potash water from a residual paste. This paste is then squeezed and dried to extract the essential calcium compounds for making cement. Finally, all the raw materials are combined and fired in the kilns to create the finished wood ash cement. Xu Hao is floored, realizing his own past attempts to make cement failed because he was doing it all wrong. The player reveals their grand plan to repair the nursing home walls and proudly presents the byproduct, a bottle of potash water. The player explains the potash water can also be used to tan leather, a very useful skill. Xu Hao is deeply impressed, wondering how he can possibly reward their incredible initiative. The player beams with pride, convinced his favorability with the administrator has skyrocketed. His teammates immediately gang up on him, accusing him of hogging all the credit for their group effort. Chu Guang smoothly intervenes, promising them a new helper as a reward for their hard work. The players excitedly request a beautiful female recruit, though one argues for a muscular woman instead. He awkwardly agrees to consider their suggestions, urging them to continue their excellent progress. The players salute him with fervent loyalty, while he privately questions their grasp of history. As the energized players rush off to work, Chu Guang decides to let them be and focus on his own tasks. He returns to his control room, dropping the heavy sack of supplies before his glowing monitors. He's stunned to find a system notification rewarding him for the player's unexpected cement-making project. With a grin, he decides to spend his newly acquired points on 7 blind boxes, initiating the draw. The first pull reveals 5 fruit-flavored lollipops, a simple but welcome source of sugar. Next, he receives a 200-gram bar of chocolate, a valuable item for restoring energy. The final prize is a 500-gram bag of refined salt, a rare and precious commodity in the wasteland. He slumps in his chair, realizing the small bag isn't nearly enough to preserve the amount of meat he plans to hunt. A sudden idea brightens his expression. He could trade the high-quality salt for a massive amount of crude salt. He quickly reconsiders, knowing that trading such a valuable resource would make him a target and could spark conflict. Concluding the risk is too high, he decides to prioritize strengthening his base before making any bold moves. He then checks the online player forum, observing the growing community's excited chatter about the game. Chu Guang reflects on his current players, finding them a bit lacking despite their marketing efforts. He scrolls through the forum, seeing players praise the game's realism, while others beg for access. A post from a player detailing the chemical science of wood distillation catches his eye, leaving him stunned. He realizes this player's knowledge is a gold mine, with acetone being a key ingredient for gunpowder. Intrigued by this unexpected genius, he clicks on the player's profile to learn more. The profile reveals a male user with the strange name WC Really Has Mosquitoes and a photo gallery. A picture of a professional workshop leads Chu Guang to believe the player is a furniture maker. A plan forms in his mind. This craftsman's skills are exactly what he needs to utilize their wood supply. Without hesitation, he sends a private message offering the knowledgeable player a spot in the closed beta. Elsewhere, a man working at his desk is interrupted as his phone lights up with the coveted invitation. The player, a craftsman with the username WC Really Has Mosquitoes, looks up from his work. He cautiously replies to the mysterious Light, who has offered him a coveted spot in the closed beta. The player is stunned to learn he's been personally contacted by the game designer of Wasteland Online. Still skeptical, he challenges the designer to prove his identity, receiving a registration link in response. He asks if there's a fee but is met with silence, increasing his suspicion. Despite the risk of it being a scam, the allure of the game proves too strong to ignore. Meanwhile, Chu Guang calmly waits in his command center for the player to take the bait. The craftsman finally gives in, completing the application and asking for further instructions. Chu Guang quickly confirms the process, promising to fast-track his application for access in 3 days. Having secured his new carpenter, Chu Guang immediately begins strategizing about the next talents his outpost requires. Chu Guang is suddenly puzzled by a new notification on his screen. He sees the new recruit already bragging in the group chat, much to the fury of other applicants. Annoyed by the commotion, Chu Guang realizes he can no longer keep his special invitations a secret. He posts a message to calm the frenzied players, explaining the need for specialized testers. After assessing his food supplies, he decides the base can easily support a couple more people. A new thought strikes him. Even with ample food, they desperately need someone to cook it. With a devious smile, he announces the next recruitment slot is for a chef to test the cooking system. The forum immediately explodes with players hilariously vying for the position with cooking memes and dubious claims. He clutches his head in frustration, overwhelmed by the flood of applicants and their questionable qualifications. Just as he's about to give up, a brilliant idea for selecting the perfect candidate dawns on him. A confident applicant posts a picture of himself with a chef's trophy, declaring his superiority. Chu Ho immediately spots this promising candidate and makes his decision with a decisive click. He then heads to the 3rd floor of the nursing home, where he finds his little robot assistant. The small robot, Little 7, appears overjoyed to see him, reaching out its arms in relief. He notices the robot's battery is critically low, with only 1% of power remaining. Relieved that it's just a simple power issue, Chu Guang dismisses his initial concern. His relief turns to panic as he realizes he doesn't know how to recharge the little robot. Little 7 explains it can charge wirelessly just by returning to the main shelter. This revelation makes him realize the entire shelter operates on a wireless power grid. With a smile, he picks up the small robot, ready to take it back to the command center to recharge. As he carries the robot downstairs, Chu Guang is taken aback by its sudden cryptic statement. Little 7 casually reveals the entire shelter is powered by a massive nuclear fusion reactor core. He is completely floored by the existence of such incredibly advanced pre-war technology. Despite his shock, his mind immediately begins scheming on how to harness this immense power source. The robot, however, dampens his enthusiasm with a foreboding warning about the reactor. It explains that a very long time has passed since the shelter was first built and powered on. Chu Guang panics, imagining the catastrophic consequences if the ancient reactor were to fail. His horror intensifies when the robot admits it doesn't know what would happen if the power ran out. Little Seven clarifies the shelter was supposed to be opened a century ago, but its activation was mysteriously delayed. It then reassures him that he can prevent disaster by reaching the third basement level and replacing the fuel rods. Xu Hao is petrified, questioning how he could possibly find something as rare as nuclear fuel rods. Back in the command center, he sets the little robot down, allowing it to finally recharge. Little Seven gratefully scurries off towards the charging station, leaving Chu Guang to his thoughts. He gazes at the massive shelter door, concluding that the power supply should be stable for the time being. Realizing the reactor was on low power, he calculates they have at least a few decades of electricity remaining. A more pressing concern looms over him as he visualizes the harsh, unforgiving winter that is fast approaching. With a renewed sense of urgency, he strides through the shelter, knowing he has little time to prepare. Venturing outside, his walk is interrupted by the sight of a player diligently working with a shovel. His expression turns to one of utter disbelief at what he discovers in the outpost. He is completely astonished to find his players have already built 8 massive carburizing furnaces. The player responsible, strongest on the surface, proudly greets the administrator. Chu Guang questions the player, who humbly credits the entire team for their collective effort. Impressed, Chu Guang praises his initiative, assuring him the organization will recognize his efforts. He rewards all the players with a hefty sum of contribution points for their hard work. He then promotes the player to construction leader, leaving him completely stunned by the honor. Chu Guang grants the new leader full creative control over the outpost's future development. Overcome with emotion, the player bows deeply, vowing to build the best home possible. Meanwhile, another player seethes with jealousy over the special treatment and extra rewards. Getting down to business, Chu Guang asks the new leader to present his construction plan. The construction leader eagerly snaps to attention, ready to share his vision for the base. The leader reveals he conducted offline research at a real cement factory to improve their formula. He explains his method of creating iron slag by combining readily available iron rust and charcoal. This slag was then mixed with wooden ash cement, resulting in a far more durable building material. He proposes upgrading from simple earth kilns to a professional cement kiln to scale up production. Chu Guang raises a valid concern about the limited raw materials they are currently using. The leader confidently explains a proper kiln will let them use limestone and clay, a much more sustainable source. Impressed by the thorough plan, Chu Guang gives his enthusiastic approval to proceed. He then addresses the team, announcing that 2 new members will be joining their ranks soon. The players react with surprise and excitement as he reveals plans for a welcome banquet. With a determined look, Chu Guang calls for volunteers to join him on a hunt to procure meat for the feast. Instantly, every player's hand shoots up, all of them desperate to join the hunt. Overwhelmed by the enthusiasm, Chu Guang selects a perception-type player named Knight 10 for the task. The chosen player accepts with manic glee, much to the bitter disappointment of the others. Before the hunt begins, Chu Guang has Knight 10 lead him through the ruins to the site of the mutated leech nest. They walk through the desolate, vine-choked streets, passing the rusted husks of pre-war vehicles. Knight 10 points to a dark pit, explaining it's where they found the mushrooms and wisely didn't venture deeper. Chu Guang dismisses the location, stating their target for the day is something else entirely, leaving his companion puzzled. As they walk on, the player questions why they are moving away from the forest if they are supposed to be hunting. Chu Guang stops, his eyes glowing with a menacing light, and declares that their real hunt starts right where they stand. The terrifying implication of his words leaves the player utterly frozen in shock and disbelief. Chu Guang reveals their true hunting ground, the northern outskirts of the city, a concrete jungle reclaimed by nature. Knight 10 stares in horrified awe, finally understanding that this ruined metropolis is the forest his leader spoke of. As a mutated beast snarls nearby, Chu Guang calmly advises his companion that their real challenge begins now. He explains that after the apocalypse, the city became a thriving paradise for overgrown flora and fungi. This new ecosystem then attracted wild animals, which began to populate the desolate urban landscape. Over time, radiation and other hazards twisted these creatures into terrifying monstrosities known as variants. Chu Guang cryptically warns a terrified Knight 10 that the variants are far from the most dangerous things lurking here. The player's fear instantly evaporates, replaced by a gamer's sheer excitement for encountering new high-level mobs. After being told to stay close, Knight 10 eagerly follows his leader deeper into the treacherous ruins. Suddenly, Chu Guang freezes, alerted by an unusual sound coming from a nearby vine-covered building. His senses flare as he processes the unexpected noise. He raises a hand, signaling Knight 10 to halt as he explains something is amiss. The player peers over his leader's shoulder, completely bewildered by the sudden stop. Chu Guang reveals his grim discovery. There are signs of other human activity nearby. Knight 10 is stunned by the idea that they are not alone in this desolate city. His shock quickly morphs into a gamer's excitement at the prospect of finally meeting other NPCs. Chu Guang quickly shuts down his enthusiasm, warning him this is no cause for celebration. He explains that in this world, humans are often a far greater threat than any monster. The two take cover behind a wrecked car, carefully surveying the area for any movement. Examining a piece of crude armor, Chu Guang deduces they're likely dealing with hostile mutants or raiders. He reasons that tripwire mines are designed to target unwary humans, not the sharp-sensed variants. Based on the residual scent, he determines the explosion was recent and questions Knight 10, who heard nothing. Chu Guang orders his companion to stay behind while he scouts ahead, leaving the player bewildered. Eager for a quest, Knight 10 volunteers to join the investigation, hoping for some action. Chu Guang shuts him down with an intense glare, his command leaving no room for argument. Fearing the admin's wrath, the player nervously backs down and agrees to wait. Chu Guang admits his initial plan to use the player as bait is now off the table as he approaches a ruined building. He weighs the danger, concluding that using bait against intelligent raiders or mutants would be a fatal mistake. The administrator realizes their outpost's construction noise will inevitably draw these hostiles to their doorstep. He resolves that this nearby threat must be eliminated before it can endanger his entire community. He stands amidst a pile of vanquished creatures, declaring he won't hesitate to eliminate any potential threat. The fallen foes are a pack of mutated rats, their red eyes now lifeless in the rubble. With a dismissive gesture, Chu Guang scoffs at the foolishness of the creatures that challenged him. He assesses the small number of rats, noting that a larger group would have been a serious problem. After clearing the immediate danger, he continues his scout, surveying the vast, ruined city from a high vantage point. Suddenly, his expression shifts to one of intense focus as he spots something unexpected in the distance. Below him lies a crude, makeshift settlement, evidence of the human activity he suspected. He recalls that wasteland survivors either occupy old buildings or construct their own camps in the open. The text reveals that such simple huts are typically built by massive, hulking mutants. These grotesque beings are described as indiscriminate eaters, consuming anything from plants to other mutated creatures. Their favorite prey, however, is revealed to be their own former kind, humans. His eyes snap downwards, spotting movement that confirms the camp is active. Just as he suspected, a lone mutant sentinel patrols the perimeter below. The creature is armed and dangerous, carrying a crude bow on its back. It wears scavenged armor, a clear sign of a hostile and organized group. Xiaoyu identifies these formidable creatures as mutant sentinels, the camp's first line of defense. He realizes with a chill that had they proceeded, they would have walked directly into a deadly ambush. Peering over the edge, he curses the limited visibility that prevents a clear head count. Despite the poor view, he estimates the camp holds between 20 to 30 of these mutants. A bead of sweat forms as he acknowledges that even a small settlement like this is a serious threat. As he processes the threat, a system notification suddenly appears, issuing a new side quest. The mission is to eradicate the entire mutant tribe, a task he knows is practically a suicide mission for any player. He grimly acknowledges that this quest confirms the mutants are a hostile faction in the game's world. He visualizes the terrifying scale of the threat, a lone warrior facing a monstrous, roaring mutant. The administrator is shocked, realizing that quests can be triggered far from the safety of the shelter. He confirms that while the main system is out of range, mission triggers are active anywhere in the world. Despite the danger, a sly grin appears as he considers the hefty 200-point reward. With a new plan forming, he quickly makes his way back to his waiting companion. Rejoining Knight 10, he compares this quest's reward to previous ones, deducing its immense difficulty. As Knight 10 anxiously asks what he discovered, Chu Guang silently concludes this will be no easy fight. Chu Guang reveals his discovery of a mutant camp, leaving Knight 10 utterly horrified. The terrified player asks if they should just retreat, but Chu Guang remains silent and resolute. He illustrates the grim fate awaiting them if they fail, imagining them as the mutants' next meal. He then points out their lack of firepower and manpower, highlighting the foolishness of a direct assault. The reality of facing a hostile, man-eating faction finally sinks in for the horrified Knight 10. Chu Guang concludes they must retreat for now, planning to return with overwhelming force to eradicate the camp. He curses their luck, realizing the camp is positioned right at the entrance to their territory. While heading back, Knight 10 notices a strange, massive pile of rocks near some containers. The camera zooms in on the enormous mound, revealing it to be a significant mineral deposit. A spark of genius ignites in Chu Guang's eyes as he identifies the pile as a treasure trove of limestone. He realizes this massive limestone deposit is the key to producing cement and expanding their outpost. Back at the outpost, the other players greet their administrator, curious about the two mutant hyenas at his feet. He dismisses the creatures as a few meals, announcing he has far more important news to deliver, one good, one bad. The players, led by a hopeful old white, eagerly ask to hear the good news first. He begins by revealing the good news, the discovery of an unfinished construction site northeast of their position. This site, he explains, contains a huge deposit of high-quality limestone and even abandoned trolleys for transport. The news thrills Old White, who had been struggling to find the exact materials needed to produce cement. But the celebration is cut short as another player apprehensively asks about the bad news. His expression darkens as he delivers the bad news. The path is blocked by a camp of at least 20 mutants. Knight 10 warns of the mutants' power and man-eating habits, a fact that both terrifies and excites the other players. Knight 10 explains that the mutants are a serious threat, level 10 or higher. Chu Guang declares 76th Street off-limits until the mutant threat is dealt with. The other players salute, accepting the new directive without question. Chu Guang contemplates how to process the two mutant hyenas they brought back. He reflects on his lack of experience in butchering and preparing game meat. He recalls the importance of bleeding freshly caught prey to prevent spoilage. Unsure of the proper technique, he considers asking for advice. One of the players raises his hand, seeking Chu Guang's attention. The player requests some of the hyena blood for an experiment. Chu Guang begins preparing the hyenas, slicing into one with a sharp blade. He hands over a severed hyena leg to the eager player for his experiment. The player accepts the offering with immense, almost comical gratitude. Time passes, and smoke now billows from the outpost's new construction. The players have successfully built a series of functional brick kilns, ready for production. An ecstatic Old White rushes over to deliver a progress report to the administrator. He proudly announces the cement kilns are nearly finished and production will begin tomorrow. Chu Guang gives a slight, satisfied smile, acknowledging their excellent work. He motivates them further, stating their efforts are advancing the goals of the human alliance. Fired up by the praise, Old White snaps a sharp, enthusiastic salute. With eyes gleaming with purpose, he rushes back to his duties as Chu Guang observes coolly. He privately smirks, admitting he's become quite skilled at making empty promises to motivate his players. He notes that his players don't seem to mind, finding genuine enjoyment in the labor of rebuilding their world. Chu Guang reflects that the true fun of a sandbox game is watching your home slowly improve through hard work. He's glad they're enjoying themselves as the shelter is currently too poor to offer any substantial rewards. Resigning himself to the situation, he walks back to his office, knowing he can only offer virtual currency for now. Having dealt with his players in the wasteland, he logs on to check the status of potential players back on Earth. He opens the game's online forum and is amused to find Knight 10 already bragging about the new mutant discovery. The forum explodes with activity as other aspiring players react with memes, disbelief, and intense curiosity. Knight 10 attempts to manage the hype, explaining that details are still scarce and the administrator is busy. The chat fills with a mix of excitement from future players and comical despair from those still on the waiting list. Chu Guang smirks, amused by a particular skeptic who still doubts the game's reality. He suddenly wonders why the user Ampletime has been uncharacteristically silent in the group chat. Deciding to investigate, he navigates to the official website's forums to check for activity. His cursor hovers over the forum link, revealing several popular discussion threads. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he finds exactly who he was looking for. The post from Ampletime details the beta test's progress, from building kilns to the new mutant discovery. He scrolls through the enthusiastic replies, noting that active forum members might get priority for future recruitment. Satisfied with the day's events, he leans back, ready to reap his own rewards. Standing up, Chuguang stretches and summons the system interface. A holographic panel displays the day's completed tasks, revealing only a small number of points earned. He scoffs at the paltry points, deciding to gamble them on a system-blind box. With a decisive tap, he presses the open button on the holographic interface. A reward box materializes, opening with a burst of steam and a mysterious blue light. Inside, he finds a disappointing assortment of colorful lollipops and candies. His face contorts in despair, convinced the system has given him nothing but junk. But a sudden realization hits him as his eyes lock onto one specific item. He zooms in on a single, golden-wrapped lollipop that sparkles with an unusual light. A system window pops up, revealing the lollipop is an enhanced item with a powerful buff. Tears of joy stream down his face as he learns it provides a 10% strength boost for 10 hours.